attending FGM for the last about 15 years, I would say. So we are really looking forward to having this engagement. And I have a few colleagues of mine who are here also in the meeting. Let me acknowledge them. Dr. Jacqueline Chesang, I think you will be hearing from her a little later. And I believe also we have Professor Ndavi, who will be speaking a little later. So we're very excited to be here. And thank you for the invitation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meroka, and we are happy to have you. And then we have Mr. Ishmael Cole. If you could just introduce yourself and let us know how you are faring on in Sierra Leone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. My name is Ishmael Cole. I work for the Forum Against Harmful Practices, a coalition of 27 organizations across the geographical locations of Sierra Leone. And I have got a hands-on experience working with communities in the transformation for over 20 years. And for the Forum Against Harmful Practices, of course, the organization is celebrating its 10th year working on ending female genital mutilation in Sierra Leone. So this is our celebration year for 10 years in the existence, working to uplift, to protect, to promote the rights of women and girls in Sierra Leone.
Amazing, amazing to hear that. We have an amazing panelist called Pasanka Sayanka. If you could just in a minute introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you so much, Kimei. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pasanka Sayanka. I'm a founder and programs director of Progressive Culture community-based organization. It's a pleasure being here today. And I have been working with pastoral communities, particularly the Maasai and Samburu, whom I account from in ending harmful cultural practices, simply because I believe we need to correct our cultures so that we live in harmony with each other, with cultures that are recognized, protected, actually defending all human rights and dignity for women, for boys, and for every one of us. We have beautiful cultures that are tainted by the harmful practices, which is what Progressive Cultures, the organization I'm working with, is trying to awaken the owners of this culture, that we have beautiful cultures and we need to eliminate the negative elements, which a lot of times anchor and the retrogressive practices that we are often accused. So I'm so excited to be here to discuss, like, from a person who is every day under the trees discussing with custodians of culture, and I'm so happy here to share our experience and what we think works, what we think our communities can do to achieve a world free from FGM and gender-based violence. Thank you.
Amazing. Good to have you, Pasanka, and congrats for the amazing work that you're doing in the communities. Last but not least, a person that we rarely need to introduce herself. It's our Nene. If you can just say hi to the audience, then we request members who are joining in to kindly stay muted so that we do not interfere with the panelists. Rugiatu, if you can just say hi and introduce yourself to the audience.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rugiatu Ture. Founder of the Amazonian Initiative Movement and chairperson for Forum Against Harmful Traditional Practices, FAP. AIM works with women, girls, boys, and communities to change the mindset of the community to abandon the practice of FGM and protect the rights of women and girls. We have been in existence since 2003. We work in Potloko district where we have our office, but we also work in 6 other districts in the south and the northeast of the country. And yeah, of course, we are partnering with Men and FGM and to see how Kenyan and Sierra Leone can collaborate and exchange ideas in working with men to end the practice of FGM. As an organization, we believe that women cannot end the practice of FGM alone without having men coming on board. So that is why we are in this as partners to see how men can make the input of helping to abandon FGM. Thank you, Peter, for having me.
Thank you, and we are humbled to have you, Rugiatu Nene. And so just to kickstart our conversation, we know violence against women and girls has implications at scale across all levels, starting from family level, at community level, country level, and now we are speaking about global level. It has implications across. So Dr. Meroka, if you could just help us to understand how is violence against women and girls impacting both economically and socially, all levels of our livelihoods. To you, Dr. Meroka.
Thank you so much, Kemi, for that question. So when we think about the impact of violence against women and girls, we can, for instance, say women who experience violence, particularly in the domestic context or in the context of their intimate relationships, are also likely to have less time to dedicate towards income-generating activities. So, for example, in our research at the University of Nairobi, dealing with women's economic empowerment, we have found that violence against women is one of the key reasons women are unable to engage in income-generating activities. One, because they might have to be seeking assistance, they might have to seek healthcare support. And therefore, instead of having to go into work or to run their businesses, you find that if the impact of the violence is really serious, they will be in hospital. But also sometimes you find that the trauma that women go through because of the violence, it limits the amount of time that they can spend in participating in economic productive activities. But also you will find that there are certain forms of violence, like economic violence, financial violence, violence that relates to property, that directly has an impact on women's ability to participate in the economy. So, for instance, in Kenya, the law recognizes economic violence and financial violence if you look at the Protection Against Domestic Violence Act. And those are situations whereby, for instance, a woman's property is being controlled by her partner or her spouse, and therefore she does not have access to it. She cannot make decisions about that property. Sometimes she cannot even make decisions about where to work or if to go out to work at all. And that also has implications. For girls, we find that issues such as FGM actually play a significant role in terms of then economic outcomes for girls, so that when girls undergo FGM, chances are they will be married off, and that curtails their education. Research shows that for girls whose education is curtailed early before they complete high school, chances of getting into economic activities that bring in a significant amount of income are severely curtailed. These women also have less of negotiating power when it comes to making decisions about property within the context of the home. And that's because often they will be married off to much older men. And the negotiating power is therefore, there's an imbalance when it comes to the negotiating power because also of the young age of the girls, and also the level of understanding around how to deal with property and financial issues. Now, finally, I want to say that that has an impact on national economies overall, because we know that women contribute significantly to our economy. Research shows that actually women's activities support the economy overall. So we need them to be actively in the working force and to be supported. So when you have a good chunk of your population not participating in income generating activities and in economic production, that then also will have an impact on the national economy overall, and it will have negative impact on development goals. So for now, let me just leave it at that, and then we can hear from other contributors as well. Thank you.
Amazing. Great insights, Dr. Meroka there. Now we have a grasp of how violence against women and girls affects the income of households and the country at large. And just to bring this to Mr. Ishmael Cole, recently we had a presidential address to the National Assembly in Kenya. And if I may just quote him, he was, in his address to the nation, he said, "It is time for each of us to do our part in raising voice into morally upright men who will never need to affirm their masculinity at the expense of women, but instead contribute to making our society safe, just, equal, and inclusive." Following up from the main points that have been shared by Dr. Meroka on how violence against women and girls affect income at all levels, do you think it's the time now for us to redefine what masculinity is? And if so, how then should we redefine this masculinity in the context of violence against women and girls? Mr. Ishmael.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think so. And I really admired and very much appreciate the statement of the president about being inclusiveness. He talked about it in general, about inclusiveness. That is, everybody should be on board. And in your question, I just want to take us quickly back to the term masculinity. Let us look at it from a broader spectrum and then narrow it quickly to the subject matter. Some school of thought are looking at masculinity as a socially constructed set of behaviors, rules, and attitudes that are considered appropriate for men and boys in a given society. Of course, it stresses on the significance and it validates maleness, a stereotype way of doing things. It encompasses that social and cultural norms around manhood and the way in which individuals express and perform their gender identity as men or boys. But in the 21st century now, we should work towards how do we transform it. Now, looking at it, we have the positive aspect of masculinity and we have the toxic aspect of masculinity. Quickly, like the toxic masculinity refers to that harmful and restrictive expectation of what it means to be a man or a boy, which can negatively impact men and boys in various ways. For example, suppression of emotions. There are certain times men or boys go through certain situations, but people perceive men to be very tough and very unemotional. So despite that, because of the toxic masculinity, people want to bear that brunt. And another aspect, again, is limited range of expression. Because of the toxic masculinity, it often restricts the range of emotions and behaviors deemed acceptable for men. It discourages, of course, men and boys from engaging in activities or interests considered feminine or non-traditional for their gender. This, of course, can limit or can hinder that self-expression, creativity, and personal growth. These are all toxic form of masculinity, and also like pressure to perform. Some people just have it that you are a man. You know, men should always bear that strength, dominance, and aggression. You know, this pressure can also lead to the feeling of inadequacy, anxiety, and low esteem if men don't meet those unrestricted standards. So these are some of things normally affecting people, and because of this, also like harmful relationship dynamics. Toxic masculinity can also contribute to unhealthy relationship dynamics. They believe that men must be dominant and in control, may lead to that way of thinking that they should have that disrespect for women. You know, these are all aspects of the toxic aspect of masculinity. Now, it is important to address this toxic masculinity and to promote healthier forms of masculinity that allow men and boys to express themselves in a very authentic way, to embrace a wide range of emotions and foster positive and respectful relationships, and that to create a space to encourage open dialogue, challenge harmful stereotypes, and promote gender equality. This can help to mitigate the negative impacts of toxic masculinity and foster healthier outcome for men and boys. So now, we look at empathy now. Empathy in the positive masculinity. Of course, like if you want to define masculinity that focuses on positive qualities like empathy, emotional intelligence, and support for gender equality, this can be a shift away from the traditional notion of masculinity. So we have to promote positive masculinity. Men being, for example, honest about their feelings and need, treat others with kindness and respect, and not only using their strength for domination. So we want to encourage men to be very much to work on positive masculinity, mindful masculinity, and healthy masculinity. For empathy now, empathy is one of those words we often hear, but what does it really mean? As its core, empathy is about understanding and sharing the feeling of others. It's about putting ourselves in their shoes and seeing the world for their perspective. So therefore, like the issue of FGM, men should be very much empathetic to the situation of what women are going through. Before this time, it was just purely, FGM was just purely an issue for women. Men will just come support the process of initiation of their daughters or their relatives or their siblings, female siblings into FGM, not knowing exactly what they go through, the psychological trauma, the pain, the bleeding, the hemorrhage, and all other consequences they go through in FGM. But now knowing these issues, because now people do talk about FGM openly to a point, it is good for men to empathize the situation that women are going through. So you see, empathy here now is not, it's more than just feeling bad for someone else. It's also about understanding their needs, showing that genuine concern and offering support. So men should also support women in ending female genital mutilation. One, women, of course, men, for example, our husbands or fathers, they should take that critical decision about the initiation of their daughters into FGM or not. Therefore, they need a knowledge and they should work towards supporting women in ending FGM. Also, boys as future husbands, they will have to look at the woman prize to be their wife tomorrow, and therefore they should have that understanding and to take that decision to know whether the woman should be caught or uncut. So these are very much important issues where we should have that inclusiveness, that emotional intelligence, so that we know exactly the decisions we take, how do we take them to protect the well-being, the health of women and girls countrywide or as a whole worldwide.
Thank you so much, Ishmael. Thank you so much for those insights in the line and in the same thoughts of promoting positive masculinities in our country and in our continent, especially in the highly patriarchal communities in Africa. We also understand that violence against women and girls probably affects men also, directly and indirectly. So bringing in Pasanka Sayanka to just share how men and boys are also affected by this violence against women and girls, and how harnessing the positive masculinity by promoting positive masculinities in combating violence against women and girls does not just benefit women and girls only, but also benefit men and boys. So to you, Pasanka, do you think men also suffer from these practices that are affecting women and girls? If they do, how do they suffer in these cases?
Thank you so much, Kemei. To ask whether men also suffer with FGM, yes, very much. A lot of times people think that FGM is a women's problem only, which is not true. Men are secondary survivors, all spheres, economically, socially, health, we are secondary survivors. And I will tell you how. But also, when we are talking about practices like FGM that is anchored in culture, people should know that culture was not created by God. You know, we were created, we were born, and then we made culture. So the immediate question is, like the laws of this country, for example, they are anchored in our constitution. And who are the custodians of our constitution here in Kenya and our laws, for example, the parliament. So should you have any question with a law that is harmful at the grassroots, you cannot make noise at the grassroots and think you are doing all that should be done. It's good if you make noise at that level, but the best way of addressing that is to go straight to the parliamentarians. These are in charge, they're the custodians. And when you go there, you are not just going to criticize and make noise. No, you are going to tell them directly and demonstrate how this law is harmful. Who is it affecting and how? And this is the missing link when we are fighting FGM. A lot of times under the trees, when I'm talking with custodians of culture, the men and Moran, they think these laws are just attacking their culture. We have beautiful cultures. We celebrate male circumcision. We have so many values, practices, beliefs. There are so many things we celebrate at that moment. And the same for girl child circumcision. So just passing a law and telling them, hey guys, you know this is illegal, you are going to be arrested. is not enough. You need to go down to that particular community, go to the custodians of culture, people in charge with the laws of that particular community, and bring them under the tree in the same method and procedure they use to discuss cultural practices. Culture is not discussed in church, culture is not discussed in schools, or in hotels, conferences. Walk down to the grassroots under the trees where they formulate traditional practices and values. Then at that table, at that platform, table your issues with FGM. Tell them, what do you know about this practice? Do you know that it has been illegalized? They will tell you, yes, but we are doing it secretly. And they are not apologetic about that. Why? Because why should someone interfere with our culture? You see, so they are still ignorant. So when we are talking about FGM and those harmful practices, we need to treat men as victims of ignorance first. They are the secondary survivors and victims of their ignorance. So when we go to under the trees to discuss with these men, you categorize the consequences of FGM.
Great insights there, Sanka.
Yeah.
And I know you are doing amazing work when it comes to engagement of cultural elders in our Kenyan communities. Even I know that at the moment you are in Mount Elgon, you are
Yes.
preparing to do a cultural elders declaration there in Mount Elgon for abandonment of FGM in that region. And we really love the work you do. But probably to just bring in Rugiatu. Rugiatu, we know today we are marking the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. It's a common knowledge that all forms of violence against women and girls have the girl and woman at the core, at the center, as a primary victim. And we understand there is need to empower the agency of girls directly so that they can have safe spaces and make decisions about their bodies and have that determination to prevent against these vices starting from themselves. So maybe to understand from you, Rugiatu, do you see as we have this conversation, as we start the campaign of 16 days against FGM during this year, do you see if there has been enough investment towards women rights organizations globally, specifically in Africa, and whether the interventions that are being carried out by these women rights organizations are actually contributing to the reduction of violence against women and girls in Africa? Rugiatu. Hello, Rugiatu, if you are still on mute.
Okay, hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, when you talk about organizations working for women and girls and the investments made year in, year out to make sure they prevent the violence committed against women and girls, I would like to look at it like in two levels. You have INGOs and you have NGOs. And INGOs, you already know, are international organizations. And then NGOs, most of the time, are these local organizations. So we will have, first of all, to look at where has the funding be going. INGOs have been receiving funding to stop violence against women. And when you go to communities or you go to countries, you find out that it's the local organizations that are actually doing the work, but they are not getting the funding that the world or UN or bigger organizations are given. So it has been very difficult in the fight to end, especially cultural violence like FGM, because the money is not coming directly to the organizations, the people that are actually like within communities that can reach communities without any added costs. Added costs in the sense, if NGOs get the funding, whenever they move, they have to pay for their security, they have to pay this. So that is why we are still facing this challenge. But as an organization, we actually believe in preventing rather than after the action has taken place, because it will mean like victimizing the victim again. And so we say one of the things we believe is empowering women as leaders of change. That is why we work with schools and we form school clubs of influence, of which you have girls. And then we go to communities. We have our SOWEs we call change makers. We have mothers clubs. We have community ambassadors. This is because the community needs to own the process of change. It is them who are actually participating in the action. And if we want that to end, we need to make sure they own the process. And again, having women lead organization is so fine, beautiful, because they are the direct beneficiaries. But over the years, while working to make sure we protect women, it is very much clear that if we don't involve, we don't collaborate with the men, it will be very much difficult. So in as much as we look at supporting women-led organization, it will also be good to support men-led organization. We should not forget that we are Africans, and I will not even just say Africa, because the whole world still believe in men leading, men making decisions. We have an example that has just happened in politics, and we see what happened. So if we want to end an old age tradition like FGM that is being supported by men, and that it is being done for men, and to satisfy them, they also have to get involved to understand why we need to stop it. And they also need to get funding, as well as to engage with their men in communities. And again, what we do is we create what we call safe space for survivors, women. And in this safe space, we invest in the safe space as a way for psychological healing, wherein women can come and share their experiences. And this has helped greatly. You call these women, they come to the safe space. Those who fear to speak, listen to those who take up the courage to share their story. And with time, the others also develop the courage to speak out. And in this safe space, we have learned a lot of issues that we are never part of the discussions, even from the medical side of FGM. So it is very much important that as you work, you need to have this safe space wherein you can have trauma healing session by way of speaking, and people understand really why we are talking about FGM and why we say FGM is a violence and not a tradition, as people want us to believe, the traditionalists. And so we also say you need to have participatory programs like we are doing now. You are having people speaking and others listening, it should not only stop at this level. At the level of implementation as well, you need to create participatory programs wherein you allow the girls to engage, and not just them, they should engage with the boys as well. Our change is for the world. It's not for a specific gender. Because if we just look at violence and we stick to women to say, because it is being done to women, and we forget about the male counterpart, it becomes also another problem that we'll have to come later to also like address, which will, at the end of the day, will not be meaningful. So what we do is three things. One is we empower women and girls to be leaders. And then two, we create safe space for them. And in this safe space, they have psychological healing, they share their experiences and empower themselves. And we also create participatory programs for them to be able to speak. And as it is now, from the 16 days of activism, the young women that we have trained in different communities, not just those going to school, will be engaging in the media. So that's one way of allowing them to participate without the influence of anyone. They will be on the media throughout the 16 days of activism to speak to leaders and their communities to understand the reason why together we should end the practice of FGM. And so as an organization, we believe in working and empowering young people to take over.
Amazing, amazing. Quite interesting perspective there. And you really come in strong to highlight why there is need for a whole community involvement, not just focusing on one specific gender, but ensuring that our programs cover both men and boys, even as we try to respond to the specific violence that affects women and girls. I see Dr. Meroka wants to add in something. The mic is yours.
Yes, Keme, thank you so much, and thank you, Rugiato, for those insights. I just want to add that actually the funding models that we have for the organizations that do this work can be quite problematic, because you will find that a lot of times the focus will be on women's rights organizations or women-led organizations, and there will be no funding streams for male-led organizations that also support the fight against violence against women and girls. So you will find that there's not much funding out of the kitty that goes into Vogue. You will not find much of that being allocated to organizations that deal with masculinity. And I do want to say that sometimes it's difficult purely to have either women's rights organizations or women-led organizations really being able to respond to issues of positive masculinity, or to harness, the collective power that Rugiatu was talking about, in terms then of addressing issues around violence against women and girls. And I think the importance of having also male-led organizations and organizations with a good number of men who can really speak to issues of masculinity is important, and it's important to support those organizations and to have funding streams for them as well. So just to really highlight the challenges that we have with current funding models on Vogue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meroka, for those insights. I know we have our partners. We really don't call them donors nowadays. They are our partners who are supporting our interventions here in listening to this conversation, and I believe they are picking in those important insights from the ground on what needs to be done and we believe they are going to remodel whatever needs to be done, even as we accelerate efforts towards elimination of all forms of violence against women and girls by the year 2030, in line with the SDG 5 goals. I want to invite, if there is any question that you have to our panelists. I see a lot of comments coming in. Good. We appreciate your good comments that you have shared on the chat box. Trying to see if we have any questions so far. I just see appreciation of the panelists and the insights that have come in. Yeah, good to hear from all of you, and we really appreciate your insights. But as we await for anyone with a question, I just want to bring in Dr. Chesang from ACAF. She is one of the amazing trainers when it comes to social norms transformation. And I want to invite her to share a little bit about how the norms that exist and that perpetuate violence against women and girls in our communities can be reshaped by focusing on positive masculinity. Dr. Chesang, if you could just share with us some few insights of how we can harness positive masculinities in changing those social norms that currently perpetuate violence against women and girls.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and thank you very much, Kemi. I'll first start by saying that social norms are the unwritten rules that guide human behavior. So mostly people behave in certain manner, and it's not usually voluntary. It's like they're pre-programmed to do that. And addressing social norms is something that can take a while, and it requires a community level approach. And I start from there by saying community level approach because I appreciate the fact that men are part of the community. So social norms are said to influence our behavior if it's driven by what you believe others do or what we believe others approve of or expect us to do. And they're usually directly related to gender and power dynamics. And when we talk about violence against children, violence against women, and many harmful practices, they're driven by social norms, what we think we should do. First, I'll start by talking about why we should involve men. First, of course, they could be perpetrators of the violence. The other thing is that they have influence on decisions to continue or abandon some harmful practices. Like FGM, they're usually decision makers, and they're also the financiers. And when it comes to addressing social norms, communication between different people in the community is very important. And we know that men form part of those social networks. So it depends on the information you're transmitting. If they are to transmit the correct information, they need to be involved. And also, social norms are anchored on reference groups, and the opinions of men also matter to women, and they matter to other people in society. So we need to be able to influence change at their level so that there can be change among other people and eventually at the community and national level. And I've just commented on when we talk about women empowerment and we forget about men, or we influence change among women, but we forget to influence change among men. They could feel that because of the power differences between men and women, a status quo is important for them, and change could be challenging the authority. And so in the process, they could actually act as a barrier. They could perpetrate violence if you're empowering women. They can refuse to marry and cut girls if you are advocating against FGM. And in such a case, it will act as a barrier to what you're doing. So how do we engage them? I liked what Ishmael was talking about, the way we can engage men to ensure that they are involved in thinking about
Right,
positive
since we lost Dr.
masculinity.
Chesang. Yes, Dr.
Oh,
Chesang. Yeah,
sorry, can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah, so what I was saying is that I liked what Ishmael was talking about in terms of
Yeah.
making men change negative masculinity to positive masculinity. So you help them to think about what in reality is being a man. Then the other thing is that they can also act as agents of change. Those ones who've been able to abandon, like they are against violence against women, they support equality between men and women. They can share their success stories in standing up for the rights of women and girls. And then when it comes to practices like FGM, they can truly act as agents of change if they have married and cut women, and also if their daughters are not cut. They're also in a position to talk about the harmful effects of violence against women and also the benefits of educating girls. The other thing that we seem to be leaving out is that they can be project implementers, like you came in now, and they can act as role models. But we should also consider these men in the process as they act as program implementers, because they could be coming from the same communities which hold certain beliefs about men and women. And so when we think about safeguarding, we should think about them because they can be ridiculed or threatened by people. Then the final question was whether it is effective. Of course it is.
Yeah.
I had started by saying that we need to change community at community level. So if we need sustainable influence and change in gender and social norms, we have to involve men, and these approaches have been shown to be effective. Finally, I'll end by saying that as you do this, as you involve men, be sure not to reinforce traditional power dynamics where it is taken that it is unless men approve the change, that change won't occur, or they are taken as a priority in programming. Thank you very much, Keme.
Amazing. Thanks for that insight, Dr. Chesang. And Hoda Ali just said, as a survivor, my dad and brothers always stand with me and my sisters. It's very important to start the conversation at home, which is what Dr. Chesang is just emphasizing, that starting the conversation at community level in order to change these norms that have existed for time immemorial in our communities is very key. I like the comments that are coming in. I see a question here addressed to Rugiatu. In Sierra Leone, FGM discussion is a taboo. Which technique do you use to make FGM a discussion for everyone in Sierra Leone? I think both Rugiatu and Ishmael could come in to respond to this question, but it's directly to Rugiatu. Oh, Ishmael, if you are ready, you could go in. Understanding that especially having this discussion around FGM among men could be a taboo. So what technique are you using to have the discussion with men and boys in Sierra Leone?
Thank you very much. Okay, I can now see the question. In your work, we also learned that you destroy shrines and replace them with schools. Okay, you know, we have worked in communities and we started with what we call breaking the silence. Sierra Leone, as we all know, still remain one of the countries that has not passed a law on FGM. But that has not stopped us as activists working to end FGM from working with communities. And the good thing is that the government has not stopped any organization from working to eradicate FGM. It is just rather unfortunate that NGOs fear to do anything that has to do with FGM. So we have the project we call Breaking the Silence years ago, and we worked in communities. Remember, people will always think if you go to communities to talk about this issue, people will become confrontational, or they will ask you out of their communities. So that was why we started with the Breaking the Silence. So see how we can engage community to understand why it is important. First, to discuss about what is happening to your children, to your women, to your sisters that you never knew about. So we started that discussion, and then we go to communities. And later, we also include the engagement with religious leaders. Sierra Leone, the issue of FGM has a tie with politics. Our politicians believe that if they take a decision to pass a law to end FGM, it will cost them their votes. So it will surprise you to even know that you have a sector of politicians, one region, that actually constructs shrines where FGM is performed, and that is their own way of campaigning. So it's the cheapest way for them. And in every village in Sierra Leone, you have more than one shrine where FGM is performed. So if you talk about reducing FGM, the first thing you will need to do is to reduce the number of bondo bushes, because when you have the shrines, because when you have so many shrines, it will be difficult even where there is a policy to monitor. So what we do to remove the shrine is to bring communities together. The idea of removing the shrines came actually in locations where you have schools, and you see families removing the children from the schools to take them to the shrine for them to go through the initiation of FGM. So we say we need to engage communities. If we bring like 10 communities, you have over 10 shrines. We say, let us reduce the shrine and have only one. So our focus is not on eradicating our tradition and culture. But when you have one shrine, we now have our community ambassadors, our mothers clubs who monitor. If you want to do your women's society that brings women together, but it should not involve FGM. That is why we believe in working with the communities to own the process, because they monitor what is happening. And again, as we say, we build the schools when we reduce the number, so girls can be retained in schools. Most times, as I say, you have communities, you have schools, but because they have the shrines where girls go to school, they prefer to send them to the shrine instead of the schools. So in those communities where you have school, what we do is to just support the community people to remove the shrines, and we set up a system wherein it's the community members that monitor the children that go to school, not just for FGM, for early marriage, teenage pregnancy, rape. So when the mothers go to school, they monitor. We ask them to monitor. You check, you tell us. They don't go to school, but they can understand and they know when Fatmata in school today and when she's not in school tomorrow or yesterday. So they give back a feedback to our field staff. And now what we do, we've engaged politicians, we engage the media, and that's how, and we have a lot of other organizations that have come together. That is why we formed the Forum Against Harmful Traditional Practices to coordinate all activities that have to do with FGM, so that we have similar or the same activities from one district to the other. Activities or strategies that are successful are what we are using under the Forum Against Harmful Traditional Practices in the entire country, because our focus is how do we speak with one voice to maintain our only traditional space as women, but without having to do any violence against anyone.
Yes, Peter. Added to what Madam Rugiatu has just presented about the person saying FGM is a taboo in Sierra Leone, yes, it was, but because of the intervention of FAP and other partners, don't forget, inter alia, I told you that FAP is a coalition. We are not an organization, rather a coalition of now about 27 organizations across the geographical locations of Sierra Leone, meaning we are found in the length and breadth of Sierra Leone. And if I want to take you back to the prevalence rate of FGM, according to the Sierra Leone Demographic Health Survey in 2013, the prevalence rate was 90%. Like she stated that Sierra Leone is one of the countries with the highest prevalence rate of FGM. But if I take you down again into the 2019 Demographic Health Survey, it shows that there is a decline of about 7%. That is from 90% now in 2019, we've got now 83%. So this shows you that there has now been a break in the silence of FGM. Now we have men, for example, like me now, I have traversed the length and breadth of Sierra Leone doing community outreach with men, with women, and people accept it. It's now become a public concern. People can discuss issue of FGM in their attire basis. They can discuss the issue of FGM in their marketplaces, public places in general, on radio, on television, on social media platforms. So it now becomes now a public concern. So you can see now that there is now a break in the silence of the practice. For instance, through the project Irish Aid is funding the Forum Against Harmful Practices, we have established about 30 anti-FGM husband and fathers clubs in 10 districts. And we also established, trained, and supported about 50 school clubs of influence. We are also catching young boys from upper primary school level, secondary school level as well. We want to catch them young. We have engaged men in the local governance structures like paramount chiefs, section chiefs, village headmen, religious leaders, especially men, to leverage their platform on the harmful and human rights, health, and social effects of FGM. We have also engaged young people, adolescent boys, on the harmful effects of FGM. We have engaged men in politics, like councillor, political party stalwarts, in all the political parties as a way of engaging them to understand the harmful effects of FGM. We have also engaged influential boys and men in the social media, like, for example, social media bloggers, musical artists. They are also singing music that are very much educative, passing messages of FGM through music in their work. We also engage men in the media. These are all platforms that we have engaged in. All of these activities, we encourage them to redefine masculinity. We encourage them, encourage them on personal expression, promoting social and emotional learning, creating opening for men to share their feelings. And we also promote voluntarism and community service. One of our core values at the Forum Against Harmful Practices is to promote voluntarism and community service. Men are now leading dialogue and changing societal and gender norms, stereotypes, and practices that continue to perpetrate FGM and other harmful practices such as child marriage. So in all of our activities, we are encompassing all of these modules. We've got a whole training manual that is working on gender and FGM. So we're working with men across Sierra Leone to try and change the perception, to try and change the mindset to say FGM is a concern for men as well. So change that stereotype thinking that men are not part of it, but rather we are be able to position men as allied in the fight against female genital mutilation.
Great. I mean, this is amazing work you are doing there in Sierra Leone. Maybe Pasanka, I know you have been doing the engagement of men and boys, especially targeting cultural elders in communities. Did you face the same backlash in your initial engagements? And how would you share if that has changed over time even as you want to share with the amazing audience the amazing works and strides you've made working with elders and other men and boys in communities towards ending FGM and other forms of violence. Pasanka.
Thank you so much, Kemei. Of course, as a man, when you decide to attack some harmful
Sorry,
practices,
Pasanka, your audio is not so clear.
do you hear me now? Well,
A little
hello?
bit. Yes.
Yes, so I'm saying as a man going into attacking culture, some cultural practices, men look at you with a lot of skepticism and thinking you have been bribed, you are eating money, and it takes quite a lot of determination to defy that stigmatization and sit down these men now again and try to educate them on why we think and we feel that these practices are harmful. And so far, we have achieved a lot through male engagement. For example, among the Samburu community, which is one of the toughest community practicing FGM, we traversed the entire Samburu community, sitting down with cultural and traditional elders. And once we convinced them, they accepted and did a declaration where they lifted the curse on uncut girls. And that one has opened the doors for any kind of intervention and has accelerated abandonment to an amazing, amazing level. I'm telling you right now, Samburu Central, we have young Morans who are coming out and saying we will marry because our fathers have uplifted their cut. They have their curse. They have removed their curse they had placed on uncut women. They have accepted uncut girls. They have accepted them to give birth to children who are not cast. These are major milestones that are bringing a revolution in the campaign to end FGM. Again today, Kemei, I am in Mount Elgon. I'm speaking to you. I am from a meeting with the Supreme Council of Elders of the Sabaot community. We have worked with them 1 year, and it has men who are educated. It has retirees who have been living in FGM all these years because they never understood deeply what this car means to the life of a woman and to the life of a man, the side effects and how it affects them. And after they learned from the Samburu communities, this week on Wednesday, we have their declaration. You know, a community declaration is going to be attended by the Prime Minister of this country together with other dignitaries. And this is going to open a door again for young girls, young boys who have gone to school and believe that this practice is harmful, but because they wanted to conform, now they will use this declaration as the freedom to their license for them to marry and cut girls. So culture is under the custody of men, and when you have them make these big pronunciations, it's just like having a country pass a law. You know, like in Kenya, we have a law, we have a board. Our context is completely different from Sierra Leone because we are advantaged by this law. So having these men come, make these declarations, commit to ending and allowing uncut girls as uncast in their communities is playing a very, very significant role in accelerating the speed of abandonment of these harmful practices. And again, I want to say,
Yeah.
men are shocked. Men
Yeah.
are shocked with the effects of FGM. If you have someone demonstrate to them how a tear or during stillbirth affects their entire lifetime of that woman, risk the life of that child, and how this one affects their happiness. You know, sex is an entertainment we were given by God, and FGM mutilates the organs for this. And men love sex. When you teach them how a mutilated organ, be it a man's organ or a woman's organ, affects, destroys the quality of what God gave us, it will change their perceptions immediately. So we have recently, again, I have a community, my own area, where men were shocked, and they have actually decided we are inviting young boys so that we apologize to them for passing over harmful traditions. And they want to ask them to stop. And they believe that they have to apologize first, that this is their creation, apologize for those attitudes, for those beliefs, and request them to join them now in ushering a new dawn. And I expect that this is going to be a big celebration again in Amboseli around 10th or 19th December. And I will invite anyone who is here so that we come and see these candid men apologize in front of their sons because of these harmful elements. And when we are attacking harmful traditional practices, always let us remember to acknowledge the positive, because all cultures and traditions have very, very good aspects and values that we are losing because of aping other traditions that we are receiving in the form of formal education. So elders take you genuinely when you recognize what is good that we agree needs to be preserved. And it's until you arrive at this point that they also understand this is bad, we need to abandon. So working with men is the magic pill in ending FGM. Thank you, Kemei.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a whole community transformation there. You deserve a club for engaging men in Amboseli to the extent they have decided to go and make an apology to their sons. I mean, that's amazing to hear from you. Congratulations. It's a whole community transformation that you've done in Kajiado County there. Ladies and gentlemen, our time is really spent. I agree with everyone who is saying that we must have this as a continuous discussion. It shouldn't be a one-off discussion. And to that extent, we'll be having the same discussion on 10th of this of December, just to see how we can continue the conversation beyond what we have started in today. Sorry, we are not able to continue with looking at the time is already 22 minutes past our initially planned end time, and we appreciate all of your feedback. Amazing comments coming in here from Dr. Chesang, emphasizing what Patsanga has just said on the need of messaging that we take to the community. In summary, we just need gender transformative messages that are not going to perpetuate the harmful sides of masculinity, but are going to transform communities, so that we can lead to more community coming in to do what Patsanka and the team are going to have the conversation on apologizing to the other generation on 10th. I saw Charity Owiti with a hand. I will just give you less than a minute if it's a question you want to ask or a comment. Kindly, very fast, in less than a minute. Oh, sorry, Charity, I think we are not able to get you. Come again.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening.
I just wanted to appreciate and say this is an educative talk. I just wanted to say.
Sorry, Charity, come again. Right, I think Charity is having some network challenges. You can drop what you wanted to say on the chat box. And we really appreciate all of your time and all the comments that have come in. I see a lot of questions that have come in. We'll try as much as possible to respond to them in our next webinar that we are planning to have on 10th of December. Millicent, in less than a minute, if you have something very burning, kindly.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to inquire from Mr. Parsanka about the event he was talking about. Maybe if you can share the details, I didn't get it clearly.
Okay, maybe you
Yes.
could drop your email address or a phone number. He can reach out to you directly, or Pasanka, if you can respond to her in less than a minute.
Yes, so on 9th or 10th December, we have been engaging throughout half of this year, and they want to correct some attitudes and stereotypes they have passed over to their sons because they think and they know they are harmful after the engagement. So they want to
Seem to have lost Pasanka. But Millicent has just dropped her email and
Yes,
phone number. So maybe
do you hear me?
if you could pick up and share with her the details. I see she has shared the contact, and everyone else who is interested in this event, feel free to reach out to us, and we are able to connect you to Pasanka because they are implementing this in partnership with Men and FGM Foundation. To wind up, I want to give Dr. Agnes Meroka to share her last remarks as we come to a close to this discussion. Dr. Meroka.
Yes, thank you, Kemei, and thank you, fellow panelists. I think it has been a very engaging discussion, and I think we will have time. We will have ACAF members again joining, and we will have more time to have further discussions about this. But a very important conversation that we need to carry on, and really timely as we begin marking the 16 days of active. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pasanka, if you have your closing remark. Pasanka, if you have your closing remarks. Okay, thanks. Ishmael, maybe you could give us your closing remarks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. It has been a wonderful time, and I think it is very much essential to involve men and boys in FGM eradication strategies because both categories of actors exert authority over social norms and are affected by the practice in one way or the other. For instance, men observation of the sexual and medical difficulties experienced by their court wives can provide a powerful argument against the practice, which resonates to local level, and work must be done to break that taboo on discussing these issues within families and communities. And therefore, men should be positioned as allies in the fight against FGM.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks. That Rugiatu, you could share with us your closing remarks.
It was good listening to experienced people working from different angles. And I will not say men should be engaged. Men will not only take the lead, but they should be working with women in making sure we end violence against women, not just on FGM, although FGM is the main topic of discussion, but men have a major or greater role to play if we want to end violence against women. It will be good for us to continue the collaboration and beyond just having webinar meetings, but at least have experience sharing session within the two countries. So we have more and more ideas on how to involve men. But thanks. It was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rugiatu, and this is well noted experience sharing in the different countries. Definitely, we will look into that and see how we can have the exchange programs between Kenya and Sierra Leone. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, the rallying call by the UN is to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls by the year 2030. And looking at the statistics in Africa, the call is to invest 25 times the current intervention so that we can achieve the target. It calls upon all of us, men, women, boys, and girls, to play our different roles in towards working and racing towards achieving this target by 2030. We are so happy to have had you. We have taken into considerations all your feedback and questions, and we will try as much as possible to get in touch with you back in terms of responding to those questions that have not been answered. And to this point, we want to bring the session to a close and thank you all for your active participation. We look forward to hosting you again on 10th December for the same second session of this series of webinar. From here in Nairobi, we say asante sana, enjoy your evening and afternoon wherever you are joining in. Thank you so much. Have a blessed evening. See you on 10th. Asante.